Yeah. Back to work. Woo. I'm about to go to work, 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 work. No sleep. 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 See, that's the problem with the nation, they don't wanna work. That finessing got my present buried in the dirt. How much more you gotta see before you make a move? Oversleep and get you fired, don't you hit the snooze. Sticking to the code, all I know is order. Rolling with the script like a news reporter. If you knew the lingo, you would know the skills. Soul like a waiter, keep a lot of tilts. Serpent in the mist, do a lot of flips. Men in these dresses got the mental kill. Tower about to tilt, tumble, tumble down. We about to lead, that's why we jumping round. Never understood you about to come around. I ain't nothing like the clowns, I don't dumb it down. Boy, I'm something like a roof will bring the gutter around. If we betting on the father, I'ma double down. Work, 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 work. No sleep. Work, 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 work. No sleep. Work, 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 work. No sleep. Work, 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 work. No sleep.
Shalom, Shalom Kol Yisrael. This is Rahab Pathuel Ben Yaakov, and you are viewing True Remnant Ministry. This is our Shabbat class on this beautiful and wonderful Shabbat day that the Most High has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Also on this Shabbat day, the seventh day, we are observing the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, where we afflict our souls through fasting, prayer, through repentance, asking y'all to forgive us of our sins, trespasses, offenses towards our brothers and sisters. This is a day of reconciliation. This is a day of covering, where y'all covers the whole iniquity of the house of Yisrael, okay? So we're going to be talking about the Day of Atonement. Particularly, I want to talk about afflicting your souls. That's what I want to talk about. In regards to some posts and some couple of videos I have seen of other individuals teaching that basically we don't have to fast on the Shabbat day, and we don't have to afflict our souls, basically. Or afflicting our souls is not considering fasting. So I want to bring some scriptures to light, to your understanding, to your knowledge, of some scriptures and things that I have done studies on concerning this matter. Hopefully we can get some clarity and some insight on this particular subject. Should we fast? Is fasting a part of afflicting your soul? All right, so that's what we're going to deal with on today. First of all, I want to say, if there's anybody viewing this YouTube right here live, please leave me a comment. Let me know how it's coming through, if you can hear me or whatnot. And I'm going to go ahead and check on my end right quick to make sure that this is coming through properly. All right, so just bear with me. Give me some time. I'm just going to turn the volume up on this a little bit just to see if it's coming through or whatnot. Okay, so it is coming through. Todah for that. So we're going to go ahead and get on with this teaching. All right. Once again, if you are viewing this live broadcast, YouTube live at this point, we are on live. This is not a pre-recorded video. This is a live video on YouTube Live. If you are viewing this video by any chance, please leave us a comment. Let us know that it's coming through, that you're hearing it, so forth and so on. Once again, Shabbat Shalom to Kol Yisrael, to all the house of Israel scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. This is Raha Pathuel ben Yaakov. I know it's been a long time coming. I have been missing, but I've still been in action, if you will. Okay, so I've still been ministering, still been preaching, teaching, doing street ministry, ministering to individuals here in our area, Southeast Missouri. Also been the pleasure of traveling to Louisville, Kentucky with my Ak Yosef of the house of Yah's house in Louisville, Kentucky. I was out there with them last Shabbat. I did a teaching there at the assembly concerning Don't Be a Castaway. And those of you who have not heard that teaching, go to Ak Yosef Yisrael's page and view that video. I'm also going to repost it on my page, so those of you who have not saw that teaching can view it as well. It was a pretty good teaching, if I say so myself. It's been a while since I had actually broadcast on any social media, and I've took some time away from it because a lot of people don't understand it can become very consuming. It takes a lot of hard work and effort to bring forth good quality teachings. Also, I got a family, I got kids, I got work, I got my own businesses and stuff that I've been working on. So I had to forfeit the broadcast for a while, and also I've been really seeking Yah for a sure word of prophecy, if you will, because there's a lot of things that are going on in our time frame. This era that we're living in, we see earthquakes, whirlwinds, nations rising against nations. We see a lot of things that are pointing to the return of our King, Yeshua HaMashiach. All right. So, that being said, I've been searching my heart, seeking Yah diligently for a word for the house of Israel. And I have some teachings that I definitely want to bring to the forefront. Teachings dealing with the time frame prophetically that we're in now. I'm not setting any dates. I want to let you know that right now. I'm not setting any dates or predicting anything. I'm not going to do that. Okay, Yah has not spoken to me on concerning a certain date or time when certain things should happen, but we need to understand what time frame that we are in right now. Okay, we need to know what it is that we need to do to prepare for the things that are going to come upon the face of the earth. Okay, and one of those things, most important, is getting our house in order, repenting, making sure that we're obeying Yah in all that we do. That's first and foremost. Okay, so I have some teachings, also some simple, fundamental, basic teachings. Okay, and they may be basic, but they're very important to understand. Okay, I tell people all the time, one of my sayings is that the profoundness of a subject or anything is found in the simplicity of it. You understand what I'm saying? Say, for instance, I am a carpenter by trade. I'm a master carpenter. I can build anything, build a house. Matter of fact, I took an old trailer, remodeled it, the house, the home that we stand in now. I took an old trailer that I paid $2,000 for it. It was run down. I gutted out, fixed it up, added rooms onto it, and it looks very, very nice. Okay, it looks good. So I was able to do that based on the understanding and knowledge that I had gained from other men who were carpenters who taught me the trade. Okay, But in order for me to get to the point that I am now, I had to learn one basic thing: how to use a hammer. I remember my father showing us how to use a hammer, and we would grab the hammer up near the top of it. He would be like, "Oh no, you can't choke the hammer, son. Stop choking the hammer. You got to hold it down at the handle, and flick your wrist when you strike with the hammer. Flick your wrist along with the motion." He taught us how to do that, and that simple process of learning that basic fundamental allowed me to gain understanding and know how to build a whole house. Because you cannot build a house without knowing how to use a hammer in order to put it together. Okay, so that is the analogy. We have to understand the basic fundamental things of Yah's words. Okay, and once we master those things, then we can go on to more deeper things. But most of us have not even mastered the simplicity of things. So sometimes we need to revisit those things. We need to revisit those teachings. Okay, and I don't have a lot of those teachings on my YouTube channel. So I definitely want to go back and revisit those things so we can deal with the law, we can deal with the Shabbat, we can deal with the name, things of that nature. So those things will be archived on my YouTube channel. Okay. So I'm back. Those of you who have written me, called me, seen me at different Hebrew functions, things of that nature, have walked up to me and said, "Well, when you going to start your Shabbat class back up again, brother? We need you. We need that word." Well, I am back today. All right. And we're going to continue to do this every Shabbat as Yah allows. And when Yah says to stop, I will definitely do that. I will stop. Okay. Until then, we're going to continue on with these broadcasts, okay? Without any further ado, let's get into our topic that we're going to be talking about, which is, our topic today is going to be the Day of Atonement, afflicting your soul. What does it mean to afflict your soul? The Day of Atonement, afflicting your nephesh, or your soul. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Todayah. Like I stated previously, there are some brothers teaching this erroneous doctrine, basically that we do not have to fast or afflict our nephesh. So what does it mean to afflict one's nephesh, our soul? Okay. So let's deal with the word soul. I'm going to deal with that particular word so we can understand exactly what nephesh means. I'm going to look it up. I do have some scriptures I put onto a slide that I will show on the video here live, so you can follow along with me with this particular one, this particular word. I did not post it on my slide, so I'm going to read it right out of the Strong's Concordance. Okay, so give me some time to get there. Alrighty. Todayah. And we're going to be looking at what the word soul, or the Hebrew word nephesh, what does that mean? All right. Todayah. Yah is Tob. Very, very Tob. Okay. So the word soul in the Hebrew is pronunciated nephesh. It means properly breathing creature. That's what it means. Properly breathing creature, that is an animal, vitality. It also means an appetite, beast, body, breath, creature. So it means the body, the nephesh, or the soul. A lot of times we only equate the soul or the being of an individual to the spiritual aspect of a person. But the being or the body or the nephesh consists of both the mind, the body, and the ruach, or the spirit of an individual. It's more than just one component. It's actually three components, if I may use that terminology. It is the mind, the flesh, which is the body, and the ruach. So when Yah says the being, okay, or the nephesh, he is talking about the whole totality of a man, okay. So our being, okay, also we see here that this word means appetite. What is an appetite? An appetite is a desire for food or for substance to substantiate that being or that life or that source. So our being or our bodies, our nephesh, is sustained through food and water. Simply put as that. The scripture tells us in the book of Bereshit or Genesis that when Yah created Adam, he formed him from the dust of the earth, meaning that he was just a form, he was just a shape or a sculpture of a body. Okay? But the scripture says that Yah breathed into him the breath of life, and once he breathed into him the breath of life, then he became a living being, or a nephesh, or a being. Okay? So it all depends on the context how the word is used. It could be associated to being, body, or appetite. These are synonyms that are associated with the word nephesh. So being that we established that, when Yah tells us in Leviticus chapter 23, and let's go there, Leviticus chapter 23, Todayah, Leviticus chapter 23, and we want to begin at verse 26. If you have your scriptures, turn with me to the book of Leviticus chapter 23, verse 26. And it reads, And Yah spake unto Moshe, saying, Also in the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day, a yom of Kippur, or a day of atonement. It shall be a Chodesh Migrah, or Migrah Chodesh, a holy convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your being or your soul, your nephesh. So we just read that the nephesh means it's talking about the body, it's talking about the being. So the nephesh or the soul is more than just the spiritual aspect of a person, just like it states in Bereshit, Genesis, when Yah created Adam, it said he formed him from the dust of the earth, meaning that he formed his body from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into him the breath of life. And then when he breathed into him the breath of life, Adam became a living nephesh, or a living being. So the way to afflict our being is that we have to afflict our body, both mind, body, and ruach, or spirit. Those three things have to be afflicted. What better way to afflict the being of an individual by denying it of the main substance that it needs in order to survive? That is food and water. Okay? Now, I do know that the scripture states that man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeded out of the mouth of Yah. So man still has to live by bread, but he doesn't only live by bread, but he lives by the word of Yah. We got to conduct our life according to the word of Yah. But the bread, or the food, or the substance that we eat, is what sustains the body or the being of an individual. When the being of an individual or our bodies are depleted of food and water, then it becomes weakened, or it becomes afflicted, and it longs for that substance in order to give it satisfaction or satisfaction. Okay, let's continue on here. So he said, also in the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be an atonement. It shall be a Chodesh Migrah, holy convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your nephesh, your being, and offer an offering made by fire unto Yah. So this day is also a Chodesh Migrah, which means a public meeting or a gathering. So we are to gather ourselves together. If you have oxen or coats that you know, if there's an assembly that you know that are teaching truth, and you need to fellowship with those people or with that assembly on this day. Those of you who may not have that, then we have avenues such as Facebook Live, YouTube Live, whereby we have teachers that will come to you as I am coming to you, and we gather together on this set apart day. All right, let's continue on to verse 28. He said, and you shall do no work in the same self day, for it is a day of atonement, to make atonement for you before Yah your Elohim. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. So there are great implications in results to a person that does not afflict their nephesh, their being, or their soul. They shall be cut off from among the house of Israel. That's why it's so important that we understand what it means to afflict your soul. Now, just because there's not a commandment that says you shall afflict your soul by fasting, as we have in the Torah, such as remember the Sabbath day and keep it set apart. You shall not commit adultery. Okay, those are commandments that deal with Pacific, but we don't have a Pacific commandment that says on the day of atonement you shall fast, do not eat nothing. We don't have a commandment that actually says that. But our ancestors of antiquity, they understood such phrases as afflict your soul. They understood what that meant. They understood what that meant, to afflict your soul. Okay, so I have scriptures to prove exactly what and how to afflict your being. Okay, so we can understand exactly what that means, because if we don't afflict our being, the Torah says that we will be cut off from among the house of Israel. And I do not want to be cut off from the house of Israel because I did not afflict my nephesh. And this is the problem with teachers that are teaching against the scriptures, all right, using these whacked up analogies that make no sense, okay, and causing Israel to sin and causing people to be cut off based on their ignorance. That's why the scripture tells us that Yahweh give us Rahab, pastors or shepherds after his own heart that will feed us with knowledge and understanding of the word. I want you to have understanding and knowledge of this particular topic, okay? And I know that I sound redundant. I know I go over things, scenarios over and over again. The reason why I do that, okay, is for you to understand. I want to make sure I drive it home in your mind and in your spirit that you will have clarity of understanding. Because a lot of times you can say something one time and people still don't get it. Sometimes you have to say it 10 or 15 times before people actually catch on to it. And that doesn't mean that a person is stupid, okay? That doesn't mean that. I'm not saying that you're ignorant or stupid because of that. That's just human nature. That's why the Most High always remind us throughout the Torah and the prophets, and even in the renewed covenant, he always has to remind us to hear, to Shema, hear, O Israel, because a lot of times we hear what we want to hear and we don't hear what we need to hear. Okay, there's a difference. Todayah. So I want to define something here. Before we move on, let's define this word afflicted, to afflict oneself. I want to define that. Let me see if I have it here so I can pull it up. Okay, yes, I got it right here. All right. So to afflict oneself in the Hebrew, it is enunciated anan in the Hebrew. All right. A primitive root, possibly rather ideal, with H6030. You can go and look that up. Through the idea of looking down or browbeating, to depress literally or figuratively, abase self, affliction or afflict self by mistake. Answer by mistake. chasten self. I want you to remember that synonym. Chasten self. Remember that, okay? Let's continue on. Deal hardly with, defile, exercise, force, gentleness, humble self. I want you to remember that synonym. Humble. I want you to remember the word humble, okay? That is a synonym or a word that defines the meaning of anan, or to afflict. Let's continue on. He says to hurt, ravish, sing by mistake, speak by mistake, submit self, weaken. I want you to remember this word also. This synonym, weaken or weak. It's very important that you understand these three words are synonyms that are associated with the Hebrew word anan, the English word afflict. Humble, chasten, and weaken. There's one more word I want you to remember too. Remember weep, because we're going to come across that word, weep. W-E-P-T, weep. I want you to remember that word too, weep. That's also associated with the defining meaning of the word anan, or to afflict. All right. So let's continue on reading in Leviticus chapter 26. It says, and whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in the same day, the same soul will be destroyed from among his people. Okay. Now I want you to understand an analogy here. Okay. Verse 30 says, whatever soul it be that doeth any work. So if a soul is only a spiritual application of a person, then how could it work? Because we know that a soul, in a lot of cases, how we've been trained to think that a soul, or the word soul, is something that is invisible or something that is elusive, if I may use that term, a mythical, elusive analogy. So this goes to prove that when the scripture says soul, it's talking about being or body. It's talking about something that is both spiritual and physical, okay? Because if a soul is only associated with something that is spiritual, we know that a spirit is invisible. It cannot be seen, basically, with the carnal eye. Sometimes spirits can manifest themselves in the physical realm. I'm not doubting that, but I'm saying based on how we've been taught about our soul, that it's only referred to something that's basically elusive or transparent or translucent or something like that, okay? But it doesn't mean that, because it says here that whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work. So a soul can do work, meaning me. I am a being. I am a nephesh. I am a living being. That's what a soul is. It's just a being that is living. Okay? That's what it is. So I can take myself and go do work. That is a physical application, because it takes my flesh and my mental proclivity and my spirit, my ruach, in order to do that particular work. So he says that whosoever doeth any work on that same day, that same soul shall be destroyed from among his people. Verse 31, you shall do, let's go into that. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generation, O Lamb. It shall be throughout your generation in all your dwellers. Just not some of your dwellers, but wherever you pitch your tent, wherever you are inhabited, or your habitation, no matter where it may be on the face of this earth, this is a statute throughout your generations. Verse 32, it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest. You shall afflict, you shall anan, you shall humble, you shall weaken, you shall chasten your being, yourself. So your being is basically referring to self, yourself. Okay, not some elusive, translucent metaphor. It's talking about this here, this stuff right here. You can feel, you can see, you can touch. That's what it's talking about. You should afflict that, your being. All right? Let's continue on. It says, it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your soul or your being in the 9th day of the month at eve, from evening to evening. So this particular day begins at the eve of the 9th day until the eve of the 10th. All right? And I want to prove that this particular day is indeed a fast. I want to read one verse here. Let me see if I can find it. Zechariah chapter 7. Hallelujah. Zechariah chapter 7 verse 4. If you have your scriptures, I want you to turn there. I don't have that particular verse posted as of now, okay? But we're going to go to Zechariah chapter 7 verse 4. I'm going to read this from the scriptures. Zechariah chapter 7 verse 4, and it reads, Then came the word of Yah of hosts unto me, saying, Speak unto all the people of the land and to the Kohen, the priests, saying, When you fast and mourn in the 5th and 7th month, even those 70 years, did ye at all fast unto me, even to me? So Yah's asking him a question. What was your fast for in the 5th and in the 7th month? What was the whole reason or the purpose behind you doing this fast if you're not going to hearken to the law and to the commandments and to the word of Yah? Okay, basically. If you're not going to take heed to the corrections and the prophecies of the former prophets, when you go down and read, that's what he's referring to. But I want you to notice something here. I want you to take note. In this particular verse, he is stating a fast that occurs in the 5th month and the 7th month in Zechariah chapter 7 verse 5. Now, the fast that occurred in the 5th month, I have not done further research on that, but I am going to do research on that to find out what that fast is. But obviously, it's not a fast that Yah had ordained or commanded, because we don't see it listed in the law or in the Torah. It's not a commandment. But the fast in the 7th month, we see in Leviticus chapter 7, once again, Leviticus chapter 23. Let's go there. Let's read that again about the fast in the 7th month. Leviticus chapter 23. Todayah. Verse 27. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27. It says, Also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. All right. And you shall have a Kodesh convocation unto you, and you shall afflict your souls. We go back to Zechariah chapter 7, verse 5. You will see that Zechariah mentions two fasts in the 5th and the 7th month. So the 7th month fast had to be Yom Kippur, or the Day of Atonement. And they fasted. It was a fast. So that proves that we have to fast in the 7th month. Somewhere down the line in the 7th month, you have to fast, okay? And that fast was according to Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27. It occurred on the 10th day of the 7th month, okay? Hebrew calendar. Not Gregorian, but Hebrew calendar. All right, let's continue on. Let's move on. Let's keep this locomotive moving, all right? Let's continue on to Leviticus chapter 23, verse 30. Hallelujah. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 30. And it reads, And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in a certain day, that soul will be destroyed from among his people. You shall do no manner of work. It is a statute forever throughout your generation. And it shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest. And you shall afflict your soul in the 9th day of the 7th month at eve. For evening unto evening. All right. So we established that at the end of the 9th day at eve, that's when we start the fast until the 10th day at eve. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on from there, and we're going to go to Psalms. Psalms, Tehillim, chapter 35, verse 13. All right. Tehillim, Psalms chapter 35, verse 13, all right? And here in Tehillim, this is going to clarify, this is one of the hard hitters that's going to explicitly and distinctively let us know how we are to afflict our souls, all right? Afflict our souls. All right, let's pull it up here. Tehillim chapter 35, verse 13, it says, but as for me, this is Dawid speaking, as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth, I humbled my soul with fasting. He said that I humbled my soul with fasting. I'm going to say it once again. I humbled my soul with fasting. My told out for the comment. It's good to be back, my brother. Shalom, shalom to you. All right, so let's continue on. Psalms chapter 35, verse 13. I'm going to read it again. For those of you who didn't catch it. Dawid says this. Psalms chapter 35, verse 13. But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth, I humbled my soul with fasting. What was one of the 3 words that I told you all to remember? What was one of the 3 words that I told you all to remember? I told you to remember, one of those words was humble. One of those words that I told everyone to remember was humble. Humble is a synonym of the Hebrew word anan, which is the English word afflict. So when you afflict yourself, you humble yourself. Now, I want to take it a step farther. Let's look up what this word humble means in Tehillim chapter 35, verse 13. That we use the word humble. What is the Hebrew word and definition for the word humble? Is the Hebrew word or definition for the word humble the same word, Hebrew word that is used in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27, where Yah says, you shall afflict your soul? Well, let's see. Let's see exactly what it is here. Okay. The Hebrew word for humble is anan. It is the same Hebrew word that is used in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27, where Yah says, you shall afflict your soul. It is hanan. Okay. So we know that hanan means to abase yourself, to chasten yourself, to weaken. I want you to remember the word weaken and chasten. And I also want you to remember the word wep, W-E-P-T, to weep. Okay? Let me see if that's one of these words here. I thought I saw a word that means to weep, but I don't see that here in the synonyms for anan. Okay? All right. So, moving forward, we had established that Dawid in the Hebrew writings, he is using the same word, anan, which is translated in the English as humble, but the Hebrew word is anan. It is the same word that is used in Leviticus chapter 23, verse 27, when Yah says, you shall afflict. That word is anan too. Okay, so going back to Psalms chapter 35, verse 13, Dawid said that I anan my soul with fasting. That is the Hebrew word there, anan, which has been translated as humble in the English, but humble is a synonym of the word afflict. Okay? So how do we afflict our humble, our anan, our being? We do it with fasting. I mean, it don't take a rocket science to see that. The scripture tells us that line must be a line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. Not a lot here and a lot there, okay? And that's one of the things, it really makes me upset, when I see the ignorance of some of these young cats, the younger cats that are coming out who've been in the truth probably for 6 months, and they want to call themselves teachers, right? And they see a seasoned teacher that may use 5 or 6 verses to prove his point, and they automatically quote from Isaiah where it says, a line gotta be a line, put a line of precept of a precept here a little and there a little. And I'm looking at them like, you ignorant fool, okay? Just because you have a quantity of scripture doesn't mean that you have quality. You can take a few verses, here a little, there a little, as long as those verses are line upon line and precept upon precept, that's all that matters. Look how Messiah taught. Let's look at the example of how Messiah taught. Did Messiah use 30, 40 verses to prove his point? No, he did not. He didn't teach like that. So I'm not saying that you can't have a numerous amount of scriptures to prove your point. If those scriptures prove your point, use them. But just because someone uses 4 or 5 verses to prove their point doesn't make them less than a teacher than a person that uses 100 verses. Because a lot of times when people use a bunch of verses to prove their point, then they don't understand how to line things up, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little. He said here a little and there a little, not here a lot and there a lot. So let's not focus on the quantity of scriptures. Let's focus on the quality of the scriptures, how you use them, how you interact with them, how you break them down. That's how you define a seasoned teacher from a novice. Let's get back. I don't want to get off a topic because I do that a lot. I get off a topic. But Psalms chapter 35, verse 13. I keep saying this verse because I want to drive it home in your spirit. David says, I humbled my soul with fasting. So fasting was the avenue that David used to humble his soul. And a lot of these cats that are out here, these false teachers that are teaching, oh, well, it's not a commandment that says that you have to fast in order to afflict your being. Well, David said that's what he did. He did it with fasting. And a lot of these people that are teaching this, I mean, when you look at them, they fat themselves. They're big people. I'm not saying that to be sarcastic or to be derogatory towards anybody, because my father was a great man to me, and he was overweight. Okay, he was an overweight man, and I loved him to death. He taught me many things, and me doing what I'm doing today is a result of him because he was a preacher. He was a good preacher too. I'm not saying that. But a lot of these brothers that are saying, well, you don't have to fast, you look at them, they got guts out to here. Oh, no wonder why you're saying that you don't have to fast, because you don't want to turn down that plate. I mean, think about it, brothers and sisters. How hard is it? Think about this for a moment. The Most High gives us 1 day out of 365 days that are in a year. He gives us 1 day that he commands for us to fast, and we make all kind of wicked excuses why we can't do it. Shame on you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. He gives you 365 days when you can eat, you can drink. He tells you to do 1 day of fasting, and we act like we about to die. It is a wickedness among the house of Israel. We have to be ashamed of ourselves that we even have teachers, whether they're true or false, as out here saying this crap. That's even trying to teach people that they don't have to fast on 1 day. That goes to show that we ain't willing to suffer for the Most High. We ain't willing to, if we can't turn down our plate for 1 day, what makes you think that you're going to give your life for the cause of the predicament. I have a 1-year-old, I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 3-year-old, and they fasting. And they're not running around here acting like they're about to die. But yet you got grown men, biggest houses, that's sitting up here teaching you you don't have to fast on the Day of Atonement. That's not what it means to afflict yourself. Shame on you. And this is why Israel continues to walk in the path of wickedness, because those that lead them cause them to error. Let's continue on. We read Psalms chapter 35, verse 13. Let's go on down. Let's get another script. Psalms chapter 69, verse 10. Tehillim chapter 69, verse 10. All right? And it reads, when I wept and chastened my soul with fasting, that was to my reproach. All right? That we said, when I wept and chastened my soul with fasting. You see that? So the word chasten here, when you look it up in the scripture, that word is italicized, meaning that it was added to the text for clarification reasons, all right? So in order to understand exactly what Dawid is referring to, we have to take out the word chasten because that was added there by man. It wasn't a part of the original text, all right? And we have to look up this word wept. So let's look at the word wept to get a better understanding of what Dawid is referring to. Wept in the Hebrew is baka, a baka. It means to weep, generally to bemoan, at all, bewail, complain, to make lamentation, mourn, sore, with tears, weep. All right? So he wept, or he lamented, he bewailed himself, his soul, with fasting. Okay, let's read that. Let's read that again. Let's take out the chasten and let's put a synonym here that represents the meaning of this word, baka, which means wept in the English. All right. He said, when I lamented, lamented is one of the synonyms that go along with the Hebrew word baka. When I lamented my soul with fasting, or when I bemoan or bewail my soul with fasting, meaning that his soul, he lamented his soul, or he caused his soul to bemoan, or he caused his soul to mourn, or he caused his soul to weep with fasting. Okay? That's what it means. That's what he did. When I wept, I chastened my soul with fasting. The word chasten is italicized. So if we were to use a synonym that goes with the word weep, or the Hebrew word baka in the Hebrew, lamentation, or to lament, to wail, to moan, to be sore, those are synonyms that go along with that word baka. Okay? So Dawid was saying, when I lamented my soul with fasting, that's what he did. He caused his soul to lament, or he caused his soul to weep, or to moan, or to be sore with fasting. So he chastised, he afflicted his soul with fasting. That's what he did. He chastened himself, causing his soul to lament, causing his soul to bemoan or to weep with fasting. He did that with fasting. Okay? That's the only way to afflict your being is with fasting. To take away the very thing that your being desires the most. That is food and water. You take that away, your being is afflicted. You walking around here feeling hunger pains. You getting a little shake. Your legs getting a little shaky and heavy. Feeling like you about to fall because you ain't ate in 24 hours. And that's the whole purpose of afflicting your being. That's how you do it. Now, we mentioned two times already that he did it through fasting, okay? Let's continue on. Todayah. Let's go to Psalms chapter 109, verse 24. Psalms 109, verse 24. And it reads, my knees are weak through fasting, and my flesh faileth of fatness. What was one of the synonyms that I told you all to remember? I told you to remember humble. We dealt with that. I told you to remember chasten. We dealt with that. And I told you to remember whip. And we just dealt with that as well. And I told you to remember one more, and that was weaken. Weaken is a synonym that goes along with the word afflict, or to afflict, or anan in the Hebrew. It also means to weaken. So Dawid says, my knees are weak through fasting. Don't your knees get a little weak? Your ankles get a little weak? Your body becomes a little weak? You feel like you're going to stumble or fall because you're fasting? Don't it cause that type of effect when you deny yourself of a substance that your nefesh, that your being desires and long for in order to survive? When you deny yourself of that, you feel that instantly. Your stomach start to growling, your stomach start to churning, you start feeling a little shaky, knees start getting a little feeble, legs start getting a little weak. That's what Dawid was referring to, and he did that through what? Fasting. So Todayah. Let's look up the meaning of weak. I'm going to look up that meaning right quick, okay? The meaning of weak is kasha, which means to toil or to waver through weakness of the leg. Don't your legs feel a little weak when you fast? Yes, it does. Especially the ankles, by implication to falter, stumble, fail, faint, bereave, all right? Cast down, decay, cause to fail, cause, make to fall down, feeble, beat, ruin, overthrown, stumble, be weak. So that's what Dawid did. He did it through fasting, okay? He did it through fasting. So we've already established 3 verses that deals with humbling oneself through fasting, weeping and chastening oneself through fasting, and we dealt with another verse that shows the nefesh or the being becoming weak through fasting, okay? Let's go on to Isaiah chapter 58. Everybody knows this particular verse. We're going to read down through it, okay? There's some things I want to point out even in this chapter here. Todayah. Hallelujah. And it reads, Isaiah chapter 58, verse 3. He said, wherefore have we fasted? Say they. And you see it not. Wherefore have we afflicted our souls, and you take no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast, you find pleasure and exact all your labors. See, this verse right here proves that afflicting your being or your soul is a byproduct of you fasting. He said, wherefore have we fasted? Say they. And you see it not. Wherefore we have afflicted our soul. That's the context. The context of fasting is associated with afflicting your soul. Okay? He said, but you do your pleasure and you exact all your labors. So say, for instance, we know that we're not to do our pleasure on the Day of Atonement. We're not supposed to do things that please us or things that make us feel good. Don't eat and make you feel good. If you eat a good meal, don't that bring pleasure to you? Don't that satisfy the longing or the hunger of your being, of your nefesh? Yes, it does. So the whole point of atonement is to take away your pleasure. To take it away so that you might understand the pain and the tremendous sacrifice that the atonement has provided on behalf to cover your sin. That's why even on the feast of Pesach or Passover, we partake of the bitter herb, because the bitter herb reminds us of the affliction and the bitterness of slavery that our ancestors endured while they were in Egypt, and it also represents the bitterness of our transgression towards God. So taking away your food or in water causes your being to be afflicted. You're taking away the thing that is most pleasurable to your being, that is food and water. All right? Let's continue on with the read. He says in verse 4, behold, you fast for strife and debate, to smite with the fist of wickedness. You should not fast as you do this day. He said, you ain't going to fast like that on this day. Don't you do it for this day. Any other fast that you personally want to do, and that's what you want to do, you do it. But on this day, I'm not having it, Yah says. Yah says, don't do it on this day. What day is he talking about? He's talking about the day of atonement, whereby we afflict our nefesh, we afflict our being, okay? I want to read a precept that goes along with Isaiah chapter 58, verse 4, okay? I want to skip to, and keep your finger on Isaiah chapter 58, because we're going to come back to that. But I want to go to Matthew chapter 6, verse 16 through verse 18, and look at what Messiah said. Messiah speaks on the same line as Isaiah chapter 58, verse 3 speaks, okay? Messiah says, moreover, when you fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their countenance, that they might appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But you, when you fast, anoint thy head, wash thy face. That's what I did. I anointed my head. I put beard oil on. I put beard on my oil on my face. I washed my face and everything of that nature. He says that you might appear not unto men to fast, but unto Yah, which is in secret, and Yah, who seeth you in secret, will reward you. So this fast is not to be made for an open spectacle. This fast is not to prove who can fast the longest, who can pray the hardest, who can do whatever it is that people are competing out here to do when they fast, okay? That's not what this is for. This is a moment that only involves you and Yah. This is something personal between you and the Heavenly Father. So when you do it, don't do it as the hypocrites do. Don't walk around here with a long face looking all sad and depressed because you got to fast one day. Don't come up with these lame excuses on why, oh, it doesn't mean that. Yes, it does mean that. It means you fast. That's how you afflict your nefesh, is through fasting. That's what it means. Clean yourself up. Look presentable. And Yah will reward you. Yah will give you a reward. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 58. Turn back to Isaiah chapter 58, all right? I believe we left off in verse 6. All right? Verse 5. We left off in verse 5. Isaiah chapter 58, verse 5. Is it such a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Will I call this fast an acceptable day to Yah? Will you call this fast an acceptable day to Yah? Or will you go around moping around looking like you about to die because you ain't had a piece of bread just for 12 hours or 24 hours? When there's people out there that haven't had bread for days. But yet, Yah tells us to fast one day out of 365 days a year, and we complain about it. Look what he goes on to say. Is it not the fast that I have chosen to loose the bands of wickedness? So this fast that Yah has chosen, the Day of Atonement, is to loose. It is to break the bands of wickedness, okay? Because on this day, the Goim Kado, or the high priest, would make an offering for the whole house of Israel. And on that day, Yah would wipe the whole sins of the house of Israel clean. So this is what Yah is doing today. Yah has given us a new slate, a new chance. Whatever we have done prior to this time, whether it's been done, if it's been done in ignorance, it is forgiven. Because the atonement has been made for us through the body and through the blood of Yeshua HaMashiach. Therefore, we observe this day in faith in Yeshua, because we know that he has become our atonement, our kefar unto Yah, and he has covered our transgression. I truly believe that on this day, as the high priest would do in the times of antiquity, when he would make a sacrifice on this day, the scripture says that Yah would cleanse, that he would forgive the sins of the whole house of Israel. Just not one individual, but the whole house of Israel. I believe on this day, that this is the day where Messiah presents himself to Yah, and he says, Yah, I am that ultimate sacrifice. I am that lamb that was slain for the sins of the house of Israel. Forgive all their trespasses and forgive all their sin. And Yah forgives us. He forgives whatever trespasses that we have done and offenses that we have done to him on this day. I truly believe that, my brothers and sisters. I do. But in return, we have to keep the day as Yah has commanded for us to do. We have to afflict our nefesh. If we don't do that, we're going to be cut off from the house of Israel. So those of you who are following this erroneous teaching, you are setting yourself up for failure. Because you can be cut off from Israel by not afflicting yourself the way that God says that it should be done. And that's through fasting, okay? Let's continue on to the next verse. Todayah. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 58, verse 7 through verse 8. And it says, is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that you bring the poor that are cast out to your house? So we're supposed to be dealing our bread to the hungry. While we are fasting or denying ourselves of food, you need to go find you a homeless person, or find you somebody that needs some bread, and make sure that they have something to eat. That's what Yah is saying. He said, it's not a day to deal your bread to the hungry, to give your bread, to give your food to the hungry. While you are denying yourself of bread, go find somebody to give them some bread. Somebody that really needs it, okay? If there is someone that is poor, that's sleeping out on the streets, this is what the word of Yah says. He said, bring that person into your home. Now, who are we supposed to be doing these things to? Do we just do it to anybody? No, we do not. Look what he goes on to say. He says, when you see the naked, that you cover him, and that you hide not thyself from thy own kindred or your own flesh. So you don't hide your face from your own fellow Israelite. I'm not talking about conscious people. I'm talking about unconscious people. You see a Israelite brother that's on the street corner, he up there holding out the sound, go out there and give that brother some money. Take him down the road and buy him something to eat. But don't you eat nothing now. But go deal your bread to the hungry. Go give your bread to the hungry. If you see someone that needs clothing, you know that brother's is an Israelite, even though he may not understand Torah, even though he may not understand truth. Go buy that brother some clothes. Go get him some clothes. Cover his nakedness. If you know there is a poor Israelite brother that doesn't have a place to stay for the night, go get him a hotel room. Or either bring him to your house. and give him your bread. These are some of the things that we should be doing on the Day of Atonement. A lot of times we sit in our house, and I'm guilty of this. I'll be transparent. I'm guilty. We sit in our house and we wait for that sun to go down, and we can't wait till it go down so we can eat something and get us some juice, some apple juice to drink. Those of you that drink wine, you can get you some wine to drink. You can't wait till that sun go down. But on the Day of Atonement, these are the things that we should be doing. We should be taking our bread and going to give it to someone else that's been hungry for days. We see someone naked, we should be taking some clothes out of our closet and giving it to that person so they can clothe themselves with it. And we shouldn't hide our face, our panim. We should not hide our face from our brothers. But what do we do on the Day of Atonement? We sit in the house and we hide our face from our brethren out there. Instead of going out here doing what God tells us to do on the Day of Atonement, we sit in the house and we hide our face. This is what he says that we should be doing on the Day of Atonement. You have a Kodesh convocation. Migros come together, get into the word, get into the scripts. After that, go find somebody, go get some food and feed somebody. Go get someone some clothes. Bring somebody back to the house of Yah and tell them about the ways of Yah and give them some food. That's what he says, my brothers and sisters. Let's continue on. Hallelujah. Look what Yah says, what will happen in verse 8. He said, then thy light will break forth as the morning, and thy health shall spring forth speedily. Thy righteousness shall go before you, and the esteem of Yah shall be your reward. He says that your righteousness will go before you. See, I don't want to go before the righteousness of Yah. I want Yah's righteousness to go before me. So when someone sees me, the first thing they see is the righteousness of Yah. Why? Because his righteousness is before me, not after me. Not Yah's righteousness following me, but I'm following Yah's righteousness, and his righteousness is what's in the forefront. That's what we should be striving for. Yah says if you do these things on the day, on the fast that I have chosen to break the bonds of wickedness, he says if you do these things on this day, I'm going to cause your light to shine forth as the morning. He says that my righteousness will go before you, and my esteem, my honor, shall be your reward. Look at all the benefits of doing exactly what God tells us to do. How many of you, let me use this parable or this analogy. If someone was to tell you, look, there's 4 steps here. I want you to walk up those 4 steps, and I'm going to give you $1 million. And if you knew that person was true to his word, and you knew that person was faithful to do exactly what they said they would do, how many of y'all would walk up them steps? Man, I'll run up them steps. So, God gives us something greater than money or corner things, materialistic things. Just for simply fasting, afflicting ourselves on this day and going out doing good for someone else. Look what he continues to say. Let's go to verse 9 and verse 10. He says, then shall you call, and Yah shall answer. You shall cry, and he shall say, here am I. If you take away from the midst of you the yoke, and putting forth of the finger, and speaking vanity. You got brothers out here, they point the finger at each other, debating about stupid things like who is Esau? I mean, people hating each other over that topic. I can't understand it. A person's not going to miss the kingdom because they may not have the same understanding about Esau like you have. But you will miss out on the kingdom if you're not keeping these commandments, if you're not doing what Yah says to do on Yom Kippur, on the Day of Atonement. You will miss the kingdom on that. But yet we want to talk about whether the earth is flat or round. You know what? Everybody has good points, but I'm not concerned about that, my brothers and sisters. I'm really not. It's not an issue to me. If you believe it's circle, if you believe it's flat, well be it. Ain't none of us seen the boundaries of the earth. Only God knows the boundaries of the earth. And that's what Scripture says. But yet we will consume ourselves in things that are non-essential and the things that are of essence and the things that are important. We overlook those things and it doesn't make it. It doesn't matter. That's not what it really means. But yet you're putting yourself in jeopardy to being called from the nation of Israel. Look what he says in verse 10. And if you draw out the soul to hunger, he said, if you draw out your soul, let me put that up. He said, if you draw out your soul to hunger and satisfy the afflicted soul. So he says, if you cause your soul to be afflicted through hunger, and then you take your bread and you go and you satisfy the person who has an afflicted nephesh, or whose soul is hungry or afflicted through hunger, look what Yah says he would do. Then shall thy light rise in obscurity, and thy darkness be as the noon. All of these things, all of these are wonderful, Baruch Hakah, are blessings bestowed on the individual who do these things on this particular day. And you wonder why we cry to Yah and he don't hear us as a nation? You wonder why as a nation we still have obscurity and we're still walking in darkness? Because on a day like this, people want to make excuses on why they shouldn't afflict themselves, why they shouldn't fast, or afflict themselves or humble their soul with fasting. They want to make excuses, and that's why we're still in the state that we're in today. Excuses will get you nowhere. But obedience will take you farther than what you can ever imagine. Simply just being obedient. Look what he goes on to say, my brothers and sisters. Let's read 11 and 12 of Isaiah chapter 58. He said, and Yah shall guide you continually and satisfy your soul in drought and make fat your bones, and you shall be like a well-watered garden, like a spring of water whose water faileth not. A well-watered garden. A garden that is watered well. Those plants are not withered up. They're not about to die. They are luscious. They are green. They are vibrant. They are lively. Yah says if you do this, you're going to be like a well-watered garden. Who wouldn't want to be a well-watered garden? I know I want my life to be a well-watered garden to bring about an abundance of fruit for the Most High. Look what he says in Isaiah chapter 58, verse 12. And they that be, he said, and they that be of you shall build the old waste places, and they shall raise up the foundation of many generations, and they shall be called the repairers of the breach and the restorers of the past to dwell in. If we take atonement seriously, then we will be able to raise up the foundation of many generations. Look at the generations today. Death, drugs, illicit sexual practices that bring about sexual transmitted diseases, foolishness, cooneries. That's the generation that we live in today. Ain't nobody raising up the foundation of many generations. Nobody's really doing that today. Look at our young people. Look at the daughters giving over to prostitution, giving over to whoredom. The young men giving over to whoredom. They don't know how to commit. They don't know what it is to be committed to a woman or to anything. Why? Because the nation of Israel will not keep the Day of Atonement the way that Yah says it should be kept. Once we begin to do these things, you will see the bounty. You will see the blessings of Yah. You will see the light of Yah begin to arise. You will see all of these things begin to transpire. But until then, We're going to walk in darkness. We're going to have obscurity. The foundation of many generations will lay dormant. The old waste places will not be rebuilt, and the old paths to dwell in will not be restored. Let's move on to verse 13 and 14 of Isaiah chapter 58. He said, and if you turn away your foot from the Sabbath, if you turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing your pleasure on my Kodesh day, and call the Sabbath a delight, and the Kodesh of Yah honorable, you shall honor him, not doing your own way, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. So this is a Shabbat day of rest, as we read in Leviticus chapter 23. Let's call this day an honorable day. Let's call this day an accepted day, a day of acceptance. Let's delight in this day. Even though we might be humbling ourselves, some of us might be on our knees praying, confessing some type of sin that we have committed to Yah. Delight in the fact that your sin is covered. If you do it the way that Yah says to do it. He said, not finding your own pleasure. That means you don't go up there and make you a sandwich. You don't go and pick you an apple. You afflict your being. Don't do what's pleasurable to you. Nor speaking your own words. Speak the words of the Most High. Speak his words. Stay in that book. Read scriptures. Look what he says in verse 14. Then shall you delight yourself in Yah, and I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth and feed you with the heritage of Yaakov your father. For the mouth of Yah has spoken it. Yah has spoken this out of his own mouth. And when Yah speaks something, you can bank on it that it shall come to pass if you do as he commands you to do. Hallelujah. Let me put that up. Thou shalt delight thyself in Yah, and I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth and feed you with the heritage of Yaakov your father, for the mouth of Yah has spoken it. All right, let's move on. We're going to keep moving on. Todah Yah. I want to go to Matthew's. Let's go to Matthew's chapter 16, verse 15, and we're heading to a close. I pray that this teaching was a great inspiration to the hearts of those of you who have viewed it here on YouTube live. I got my icon here. Todah Yah, Shabbat Shalom family. Good to see you, brother. And man, I appreciate the comment and everything. Those of you who might be watching at this time, and those of you who will watch this video later on, okay? Todah Yah. Let's continue on to Matthew chapter 6, verse 14. And it states, for if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So this is the time that we need to forgive our brethren. We don't need to hide our face from our brethren. We need to reconcile differences that might be amongst us, whatever those differences are. We need to rectify those things, okay? Todah Yah. I want to go to the book of Matthew chapter 9, verse 14, and we're going to close from here, all right? Matthew chapter 9, verse 14, and it says, then came to him the disciples of Yochanan, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast often, but you, your disciples, fast not? Look at what Messiah replies to them. And Yahushua said to them, can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then shall they fast. So the disciples of Yochanan come to Messiah, man, like, yo, man, your disciples, they don't never fast. Why is that? And Messiah prophesying, he was prophesying unto them, telling them, look, he said, the bridegroom is here right now. They don't need to fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom will not be here. Then they will fast. We need to fast because the bridegroom is not here anymore. He's sitting on the right hand of the Father. He has not returned. So we need to fast, my brothers and sisters. Point blank. Fasting is how you afflict your nefesh. David said, I humbled myself. I afflicted my nefesh with fasting. That's how he did it. And that's how we should do it. Whenever the patriarchs, Daniel, any of the prophets, when they needed to get a word from the Most High, or when they were asking for forgiveness for a sin, they would fast in order to afflict their being. So that is how we afflict our nefesh. We afflict it with fasting. Okay? That's what afflicting your being means. I pray that this teaching was a great inspiration to your heart. My brothers and sisters, those of you who are viewing this video and those of you who will, if you enjoyed it, leave us a comment, like it, share it. And I'm going to be coming on next week, next Shabbat. I will be teaching from the scripture in Romans chapter 10, verse 4, concerning is Messiah the end of the law. I had someone to comment on the video telling me that Messiah is the end of the law. And I want to bring that verse out in clarity because there's a lot of people that will quote that verse when you teaching about observing the law, statutes, and commandments. We're going to find out exactly what it means, okay? Until next time, I say shalom to you, Kol Yisrael, Ayahaba, you my ox and the coats. Toda for taking time out of your time to view this video, and those of you who will view it on your own time. Shalom to you in the mighty name of Yahshua Messiah. Shalom.